So continuing the discussion, up next we have a panel discussion on integrating mobile apps and mobile-enabled processes into business strategy. And I take immense pleasure in introducing you to the panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Aditya Vuchi, entrepreneur, Zippr Media Mint. Mr. Aditya has 8+ years in the online advertising industry, working in multiple job roles, which include sales support, business operations, product management, program innovation, and sales strategy, has provided a comprehensive understanding of the ad business and its emerging trends. Welcome, Aditya. Our second panelist for the day is Priyam Bose, Strategic Partner Development, Mobile Depth Ecosystem, Microsoft. Mr. Priyam has 11 years of professional experience across IT and mobile industry, cutting across APAC, North America, and Europe. He also has telecom industry experience, spanning across mobile handset OEMs, semiconductor vendors, wireless infrastructure players, telecom service providers, technology platform providers, enterprises and ISVs, and mobile publisher developers, with good experience in consultative solution sales and marketing, partner ecosystem development, focusing on mobility domain, outsourced product engineering, OSS, BSS, and enterprise mobility solutions. Welcome, Mr. Priyam. Our third panelist for the day is Mr. Dinesh Rao, ITC Foods. Mr. Rao joined ITC in 1998 and has the experience of working with all the FMCG divisions and subsidiaries of ITC. He has been instrumental in the implementation of mobile apps, enabling business processes in ITC FMCG. In his current role as CIO ITC Foods, he is responsible for IT services delivery to the foods business of ITC. The key initiatives include collaborative production management solutions and marketing analytics. Welcome, sir. Professor Yongjin Yu will be moderating the session for us.
All right, so after such a long and boring talk, we're going to come to a very exciting panel. So my role here is, while they're figuring out how to use their computers, to set up the panel and facilitate Q&A and presentation. So the topic is integrating mobile apps and mobile-enabled processes into business strategy, which is, I think, is a very interesting topic. We have 3 different perspectives. The first one is Dinesh Rao, and he's the coming from a traditional kind of corporate world. So he has already lots of different sort of verticals that they serve. And he already has used infrastructure, corporate enterprise infrastructure, and he wants to present and share his ideas about how to use mobile technology in that context. Our second speaker is, just a second, Aditya.
That's right.
Aditya is the startup. And he's representing the way to think about creating a new sort of mobile ecosystem using digital technology and penetrate into the global corporate ecosystem. And then final speaker, of course, is Microsoft, who we all love to hate. Big evil Microsoft, IT global service company. Priyam is going to talk about how Microsoft is trying to position itself into this global mobile app ecosystem, given that they already have a huge presence in enterprise and corporate sort of IT side, how they position themselves, provide us some contrast between startup and Microsoft. But first, Dinesh.
See, I want to give a perspective of a practitioner, a technology practitioner. Okay, we have a lot of technologies, mobile, cloud, big data. So how have we used all these technologies and put to business use and delivered value? Okay, so we'll talk about strategy a little later, because what happens with most of the time is that you get something right, then you can force fit a strategy, right? So I'll take you through the various strategies that we had and how we have implemented them and how we have delivered business value and how we are touching most of your lives. I can give you some examples as well. Okay, before I start off, Okay, for people who don't know ITC, ITC is a multi-business conglomerate. We are primarily a FMCG company. We have hotels, we are an agribusiness, and we have paper boards and specialty papers and information technology. Cigarettes comes in FMCG. Yeah. We also make cigarettes. Right. Okay. So that's about ITC. Okay, so let me quickly move on to in FMCG, as you had asked me, there it appears, right? Okay, so in FMCG, these are our FMCG businesses. Okay, to understand the FMCG business a little bit more and the challenges in the FMCG industry, I want you to, I'll just throw up a quick question. How many of you have purchased a pack of bingo chips? Okay, great. Okay, so if you have purchased it in Hyderabad, I'll just pass you on through where all that particular pack of bingo chips has come in, or it's come to you as a consumer, but where all it has traveled to. The raw material, basically the potato, comes from Nasik. The packaging suppliers are mostly from Gujarat. The manufacturing happens in many places, but specifically for Hyderabad, it happens in Pune. Okay, from Pune, it has come to the Hyderabad distribution center. From Hyderabad distribution center, it has gone to the dealer, that is our primary customer, okay, who would be, let's say, Gachibowli distributor, and he in turn sells it to the retail outlets where you as a consumer go and pick it up from them. So this is the supply chain of the physical world. Okay, so any FMCG will do this. Okay, right. So just to give you some dimensions of it, we call it the pull-based replenishment model, which means as consumers consume the products, the FMCG products, we manufacture based upon that. So we don't want to get into a stock problem, right? Okay. We have 1,000+ raw material and packaging material suppliers, 1,300 SKUs manufactured across 120 factories, all of them in India. Okay, we have about 65 distribution centers, and this is only finished goods I'm talking about, which basically hauls about 35,000 truckloads per month. Okay, and this goes to about 1,850 primary customers, what we call as dealers. Okay, it goes to about 1.2 million retail outlets. See, the retail outlets, just to give you a quick statistic of FMCG retail, is the total FMCG industry today, about 15% only is what we see is sold through the modern trade outlets. The modern trade outlets are your Reliance, your Spencer's, etc. But 85% of all FMCG is sold still through the Kirana stores. Okay, so that's the reality. So even in 2020, CII predicts that only 30% of it will be through the modern trade channel, and that's the best figure. But 70% is still going to be the mom and pop stores, or what we call the Kirana stores. So finally, we are touching lives of about 500 million consumers, okay, on almost on a monthly basis. So this is to just give you the overall, like we have one of the largest and the most complex supply chain network in the country. Now coming to the challenges, now just I'll get into the mobility bit of it, like what are our challenges and how did we meet them? So the first one was on the rural distribution. You see, as per the latest census, that's 2011 census, there are 5.2 lakh settlements in India, or what you call as markets. That's what the government of India defines as. So settlements are a group of people staying together. So these settlements, out of which 80% of the settlements are less than 5,000 people staying. Okay, so therefore what we talk about, the Flipkarts, the Amazons, etc., are essentially, if you look at the number of cities or number of markets that they would cover, this is what markets we have, there's huge difference in that. Okay, so for us the challenge was, while we can service the urban consumer or tier 1, tier 2 city or even tier 3 cities, that is what you call as population group markets, how do you go to low population group markets and still be profitable? Because you see, at the end of the day, you have to deliver stuff. So if I'm going to sell atta, if I'm going to sell biscuits or snacks or a confectionery, it has to go from the factory to the dealer to the distributor and finally reach the retailer. And if the retailer is about 200 kilometers from an urban setup, how are you going to reach there? And the cost of servicing that will eat away into your margins. Okay, so that's where we basically put across some thoughts together, and we came up with this solution where we call it the M-Stockist. The concept is that we appointed sales people. Okay, they're more like entrepreneurs actually. They basically give us orders. Okay, so the mobile app enables to give us that orders. So what they do is they basically go to these remote villages, okay, and and collect the orders from the retailers. And this set of orders gets consolidated to an aggregator called a stockist. So we know exactly at the end of the day how much the stockist wants, or stockist has to service the retailers, and how much the dealer has to service the stockist. So essentially it's an aggregation game, what you do, and so we basically service this entire market. So with the help of mobility, we could basically, in year one, we could touch up to 30,000 low population group. They are essentially 20,000 kind of population group markets. Okay, cost of order servicing has been brought down. In fact, it is almost similar to the cost of servicing to urban place. And then more importantly, with the mobile apps which are there, we can track exactly how many orders did he take, how many lines did he cut, what was the value of the order. So these are the metrics which we know what is the productivity of the particular salesman. So more he's productive, more his incentivization is. I'll move to the second challenge. How do I improve the availability and visibility across the sales channels? Now what does this mean? In FMCG, when you actually go to a Kirana store, what do you see? When you just stand in front of a Kirana store, it's something like somebody suggested in the morning. When you're seeing ads, where do you see the ads? Left hand side you don't see, you only see right hand side you don't see the ads, you only see left hand side. The similar way, you as a consumer, when you go to a Kirana store, you actually look from left to right. That's why most FMCG companies keep their brands from left to right. More premium brands are left, and as you go towards right, the less premium brands. So it's all the fight about the shelf space. So in that shelf space fight is what we want to ensure that yes, we buy the shelf space at the retailers. We say, look, here's your monthly rental, but ensure you upkeep it so that my consumer, when they come in, see the brand, they pick up my products. But more often than not, it doesn't happen. So what do? We basically have a certain audit system, okay, where essentially a supervisor level person, he goes basically, he takes a certain photographs, okay, and enters certain data, and that gets synchronized to a central server, and this set of data is analyzed, and then the action points are sent back to another set of people who have to take that actions, so that it's a continuous audit cycle where we try to improve availability and visibility. So in terms of numbers, we basically do about 2.5 lakh retail outlet audits every month. The other thing is in terms of productivity improvement of the sales force. A typical, what you call as the area sales officer, okay, his job is when he gets up, he has to basically ensure that his market is doing well. So now to do that, he requires the relevant information. So in the pre-app days, what we used to do was that he would, open his laptop, connect to the Photon, connect to the company network, download a report, okay, 2-3 reports together, okay, I go to, okay, this is where the problem, so he does some pivots in Excel, and then finally he tries to do his actions. Now we cut that all out, okay. What the system does is, it basically looks at generating the actionables for the next day. So if I am visiting Hyderabad North market, how many of our dealers are there in that particular market, how many of our retailers are there in the market, a report card of that gets basically published on his mobile phone every single morning, other than Sundays. Okay, so he basically, there is a route he has to take. So on that day, the route, he knows that in this particular route, there have been so many dealers who were supposed to sell so much based upon historical data, but they have only sold this. So I only know the exceptions. So I make my interventions for those exceptions, try to see wherever there are aberrations, correct it. In a similar way, there are some retail outlets who are supposed to be built so much. Why haven't they been built so much? Can we take some actions on that? So that's what he does. And then there is also a feedback mechanism that the next time, okay, for this particular sales officer, how has been his performance. So that's what the mobile enables for us. The other thing is on the trade schemes, similar concept. When you go to a retailer, how do you communicate to him that, look, you buy 10 of my stuff, you get 2 free. You buy 10 agarbatti packets, you get, say, 3 matchbox free. Okay, it's a trade scheme. More often than not, what used to happen was it would get stuck at the dealer level. But now we are in a position to communicate those certain schemes, and this is targeted schemes. It's not generic for everybody. We basically have done segmentation, we've done network building, etc. All the concepts that we heard in the morning, most of it we have used, okay? And we basically are so essentially when a salesman goes to a certain outlet, the app knows what should, what the salesman needs to do. So the salesman it's a window for the salesman to see that and act accordingly, right? So this is a pretty big one. We cover close to 5 lakh outlets per month. In fact, the entire order taking, the schemes management, how much receivables from the retailer, all this is available in this particular application. Okay, now moving on from FMCG to hotels, more consumer facing. What you see here is an iPad app called the eButler. So if you check in into some of the ITC hotels, luxury hotels like Chola Sheraton, you essentially have this app which is, actually there's an iPad in the hotel room. You can control possibly every aspect of your experience in the hotel through this particular iPad app. And it was the world's first iPad app for the hotel which has been developed. So we're pretty proud about this. So essentially you can even buy digital content on this. You can order your food. You can basically talk to the chef. I mean, it's possibly every experience of the guest, is done through the iPad. And if the guest comes back again, the pre-settings of the temperature, the light settings of the room, etc., is preset. So if the guest checks in again, he gets it back. Okay. Some people don't like it. Professor didn't like it. Okay. So moving on from the hotels. Okay, this is the agribusiness. This is very interesting, actually. Okay, how many of you know Ashirvad Atta? Oh, great, excellent. So, right. So, we are country's #1 brand in Ashirvad Atta. We, as a private company, buy 8% of the total produce of wheat in this country. So, other than the government, next biggest buyer is us, right? So, at the wheat buying season happens in just 3 months. So, you need to actually, the wheat buying season starts in sometime in June and ends in about August. So, in these 3 months, you need to basically buy wheat, store wheat, and then transport the wheat into the mills and before it is packaged and then sent to the customer. So, the biggest challenge in this entire thing is these are all temporary setups. So, you are buying wheat in Rajasthan, you're buying in MP, you're buying in UP. Okay, so there are about 5-6 states where we buy the wheat, and you have to stock them temporarily. And where you have to stock, it could be a simple temporary shed arrangement where it is stocked, okay, and then it has to be stored, then finally it has to be transported. So all this accounting part of it, so when the wheat comes in, you got to account for it. I have received this wheat of this grade, this quality, and then subsequently I have stored it, and then when the order comes in to ship it out, so I dispatch it. Okay, so all this is done using the mobile app. Okay, so so this is basically the receipts. This is how the trucks come in. This is how the bagging, unbagging of wheats happen. Okay, and this is the dispatch, and this is finally the physical verification. So all this is done through mobile apps, and this data is synchronized through. In fact, before the GPRS was available in all over the country, we used to do this even on SMS. So we had built this app on earlier Nokia phones, feature phones, what they are called. Okay, or not so smartphones. So in that we used to basically do these transactions and through the SMS hit the ERP and do the accounting. So that's on the agribusiness bit. This is on paper boards and specialty paper division. Okay, how many of you have, when you go to in your office, in your homes, anywhere, have taken up a paper cup, filled water, and used it? Almost everybody, right? Yeah. 80% of paper boards used in the country is produced by ITC. That's for your information. Okay, and all this particular paper boards are produced through the social forestry program that we have. We have close to 3 lakh hectares of social forestry. That is, we basically help farmers grow eucalyptus wood, which is the input for producing the paper boards. So more of it on the website. You can definitely read about it. Okay, so here the biggest challenge that we had on the wood procurement part of it is, again, we have to procure it remotely. So when you procure the wood, okay, you make the payment to the farmer. The next thing is basically you'll have to so you make the payment to the farmer after the weighment. Once you weigh the stock, okay, then it basically lies in the depot, something like this. Okay, But how do you, in these remote locations, account for it? So what we did was and there was a lot of pilferage. We had a lot of pilferage issues because when these particular trucks where it is loaded with the wood would go to the weighbridge. Okay, so there the input is basically manual. So if 10 tons have come in, so anybody can enter 12 tons. So and then it is just a contest between what the person has entered and what is actually received in the factory. So to basically counter that, we had in fact we still have this particular application running where we have integrated the weighbridge directly to a mobile phone through Bluetooth. So there is no manual intervention required to enter the weight. So when a truck comes in, the weight of what is the truck weight gets directly into the mobile app. So there's no manual intervention, somebody is entering, this is the weight. So it's directly from the weighbridge, it comes into the mobile phone, and then it's sent as a document, it updates SAP, and then further when the truck is received back at the factory, so at the factory gate it is compared that this particular truck was so much weight, so is it the same weight, etc. And also more importantly, the visibility of the raw material that is there, so that they can do the operational planning. Okay, so these are some of the use cases that I have. I have lots of it, but I think in the paucity of time, I would like to end here. These are some of the Indian examples of use of technology for business value. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is my first time up here on the stage, and I always wondered why all the speakers are looking down. Is it out of respect for the speaker and stuff like that? Now I just realized that there's 3 screens over there, so we're actually watching the same presentation that that you guys are watching. So just a quick note that I figured out.
Thank you for clarification, right?
It helps all of us.
I know. Cool. So I come from a startup called Zippr, and this is going to be a sales pitch. We always do it, right? So I'm just being shameless about it, but I will talk about Zippr for a few minutes, and then also talk about a little bit about the topic and sort of what my thoughts are, and then we'll take it to the panel. So before we go into the discussion, just wanted to quickly outline what Zippr is, and actually need a few volunteers. 3 volunteers. Can you raise your hands? 1. No, I just need a mic. Oh, you have it? Okay. I have 2 people there and I have the 3rd person here. Simple questions, so don't worry about it. All right, so we'll start with the lady at the back. Very quick question. Is it on? Okay, I think she can be loud enough. All right. So quick question. So if you had to explain your address to a bank, to ICICI Bank while you're opening a new account, what would that address be? Your own address.
My house number, road number, colony.
No, I need your full address. Okay. We're going to come home.
Okay. House number 4407, road number 14, Vidyut Nagar, BHL, RC Puram, Hyderabad.
With a zip code, right?
Yeah. 502032.
All right, there you go. Can anybody repeat that?
No.
You probably got some parts of it. So we'll have a second question for the gentleman here. What if you had to explain somebody to come to your house, a friend to come to your house? What would the address be?
I stay at Thane, so I'll tell him to come to Vasant Vihar, and near Vasant Vihar High School, my bang opposite my building.
Okay, so you'll give a building name, an apartment number?
Yeah, 16.
An apartment number?
16, that's the apartment number. Flat number 401 and apartment number 16.
All right, there you go. So it's getting there. So there you are. So if you had to explain to Flipkart, what would the address be?
As far as Flipkart is concerned, my name is sufficient because I buy many books, so I have to say it in different ways.
Wrong person to be asking the question.
No. So I'll explain. The way I explain is they want basically for the courier. So one is PIN number, that is 600 410 400 610. So that is PIN code. And after that, address is Hiranandani Meadows, Lightbridge. That's all.
Okay. Do they end up calling you?
They have a mandatory field that you give phone number. So I give a phone number which is either off or wrong phone number so that they don't reach me and then don't call me. Because they are online store, we should deal everything online.
All right, so cool.
So
So
one
he's
comment.
thinking like us. Cool. So
Usually they don't
obviously, this is all in light-hearted humor, right? Also to introduce what we do as a company. So basically, what Zippr does is, all right, there you go. So we're like a new address format. So if you look at my address at the bottom, it says villa number 209, blah blah. A lot of people give you landmarks and directions, right? So basically, a new address format called a Zippr. In this case, my home address is ADIT 7575. And the idea is to sort of build an ecosystem of people or businesses that end up taking this new address format instead of A, B, or C, right? Because you notice that in each one of them, everybody gave a different way in which they were explaining their address. While you're thinking about it, and I'm assuming that all of you guys are thinking about scenarios where you had to explain an address yourself, right? And how you went through different scenarios. So I'll give you an example. My dad's a doctor, and a lot of new patients come to his clinic. So as soon as somebody comes nearby, they give him a call, and they say we are near Cafe Victoria. So then his first question is it on your left or on your right? Right? Or near my office, there's a statue. Then I have to ask, are you facing the statue or are you behind the statue? Right? You're creating a sort of, you're trying to figure out orientation. And this ends up consuming a lot of our time without us realizing it. And we've been doing this for 60 years now, or longer. We've been explaining our addresses this way. What if there was a new way of being able to explain your address, regardless of whether it's over WhatsApp or it's over the phone? Right? So that's what we're trying to do at Zippr. So the opportunity, so there was a video here. Can you guys play the video? So I'll show you a 90-second video, just quickly talking about what Zippr is, talks about the ecosystem, and then I'll run through the rest of the slide and some of the stuff that we're doing.
How many times have we had difficulties in explaining our address for local pizza delivery, grocery delivery, courier packages, cab services, or to friends, relatives, or cable installation crew? Isn't it frustrating sometimes? Well, we don't have to waste time on explaining addresses anymore. Introducing Zippr. Zippr simplifies addresses. Use the Zippr mobile app to create a code of your exact location. Zippr code is unique, easy to remember and communicate. Share it easily over the phone, email, and SMS. Once you share your Zippr with a person or business, they can instantly get your required address and directions using the Zippr mobile app. If you don't use a smartphone, no worries. We still have you covered. Simply get a Zippr card at an authorized distribution agent and activate it. Simple, huh? Zippr can enhance your life in many ways. Shopping and home delivery, transportation and cab services, cable installation crews and other logistics help, social meetups, law and order, and even in emergency situations where Zippr can save precious time and potential lives. Join the revolution. Let's change the way we communicate addresses and locations. Download the app on App Store and Play Store. Zippr. Places done right.
So cool. So you guys saw what Zippr was about, sort of end to end, right? Quickly talk about what the opportunity that we saw was. So one is the last mile product and service delivery, and I see this a lot. You go down the road, somebody is looking like this, somebody is on the phone looking at buildings. So you see this happening a lot. This thing of last mile in our country is a big challenge, primarily because the postal code has not been designed to keep up with scale. So the opportunity is really to solve the current challenges of repeated address related follow-up and clarifications. The consistency. Folks that have been to the US know that there's an address 1, address 2, and a city, state, and zip. As we saw in the examples here, there's really no address format here. So can you create a consistent format that ensures that, so if you looked at a Zippr code, it's always 4 alphabets and 4 numbers. So we took clues from like a phone number, a PIN code, which have withstood the test of time and said that it has to have enough customization. So in the case of the Zippr office is ZPPR 9090, but also follows a format. So if you have to explain an address to somebody, you know it's always 4 characters and 4 numbers. So that consistency we believe is going to be of huge value. And the last is this confluence of mobile and local, right? As a result of knowing your exact address, can your neighborhood be much more smarter about you, right? There's a whole bunch of local and hyperlocal products and services that are trying to be rendered today, right? So you have your local Kirana stores, and ITC talked about that, and you have your e-commerce guys. There has to be a nice confluence between the two, right? So can you create an experience by knowing or having a lot more local information about the consumer? And I understand there's a lot more information, and address is one part of it, but we believe that location information can be critical for any sort of hyperlocal engagement. So quick thing of how Zippr works: you create a Zippr, you can call Domino's, we're talking to a whole bunch of people, but let's assume that you call somebody or you were ordering online, you could just give a Zippr code and that would sort of take care of the address related stuff, right? It maps to an exact location. So the biggest value of Zippr is, let's say I live in Hyderabad today, my Zippr is ADIT 7575, tomorrow I relocate to Bangalore. My Zippr code stays the same, I just change the underlying address. And if I've given permission, the vendors, let's say banks and Airtel or Domino's, they get notified, hey, Aditya has changed his address, you may need to go and re-verify. So it plays nicely with our existing formats while making sure that you as a consumer have the convenience. So impact of Zippr is fairly broad. So it's in transportation and cab services. How many of you guys ordered a cab, spent a lot of time on the phone? I know Uber's trying to change that, but a lot of cases, it is going to happen, but it's also going to trickle down, right? So how are you going to make sure that the what's your address piece is nailed? I think that's what we're trying to solve. In delivery, food delivery, e-commerce, courier services, emergency services like ambulance and law and order. So wanted to give you a couple of quick examples of what we have done so far. So we've tied up with 108, which is the ambulance service. So you call them if you're in emergency and give them a Zippr code, they'll dispatch an ambulance. So they've seen in the case of when a Zippr code was given, the amount of the call time reduced dramatically from about 90 seconds is their limit to about 5-10 seconds, right? Depending on whether you already have a Zippr code or not. Obviously, this assumes that you have a Zippr, and which is our vision, right? We want to transform what's your address to what's your Zippr, which means there's this huge consumer adoption that needs to happen along with the build-up of an ecosystem. The other interesting example that I wanted to bring up was there's this NGO. It's called Shamadan for people at the back that can't see this. So what this gentleman does, and if you're from Hyderabad, you probably heard or seen this gentleman. So his motto is to basically fix potholes. He does this no charge. He's a retired railway employee, worked in an IT company, and then decided to do this full time. So he looked at Zippr and said, can I use this for people to actually report potholes? Right? Obviously, you could send like a Google Maps link and stuff like that, right? But how do you do that in a way that is much more human? And that's where he said, right, okay, I'm going to ask people to create a Zippr code and send it to me, and I'm going to fix those potholes. So we built some sort of backend tools for him to manage all of this, okay, which potholes is filled at what point of time and stuff like that. So the two examples are sort of designed to, tell you some of the non-commercial uses. Of course, the commercial uses are very obvious, right? Your Domino's, your Flipkarts, your Miro cabs, it's very obvious. But some of these examples are good because they help explain what is the potential of what Zippr can be. So wanted to quickly talk about, as I run into the panel, also talk about how we think about mobile apps and business. So obviously we have a mobile app, and for folks that looked closely at the video, we're also talking about an activation card, right? That is more of a government/NGO initiative where we're saying, an NGO worker is going door to door. So obviously doesn't expect everybody to have a smartphone or a Zippr. So they're creating a Zippr and giving the card to them, and that becomes their digital identity for their address. So when you think of mobile apps, basically think of it as three ways. One is the mobile app is your business. Think Candy Crush, Angry Birds, right? So where the app is your business. The second part is the app is a touch point or an enabler, and a lot of business actually fall within this category. You think of Flipkart, you think of a whole bunch of guys where the app is a touch point. It is not their business, right? Uber, for example, you have a mobile app, but they're in the business of transportation and delivery, where the app is a touch point or enabler. The third is app is just a byline or a checkbox. We talked about it a little bit before as well. So I couldn't come up with great examples that did that, but think of like restaurants, right? They're in the business of serving food. So for them, having a mobile app of their own is somewhat meaningless, right? You'd rather better plug into a Zomato or somebody else and just piggyback and do your business there. For them, having a mobile app is more like a byline or a checkbox. So just wanted to leave it there in terms of how we think of mobile apps and how that they have to basically flow into your mobile strategy. You cannot force fit a mobile app into what you're doing and say, you know, now I'm mobile app enabled. All right. So just leave you guys with those thoughts and we'll have Priyam take over. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Priyam from Microsoft, and I've been focusing on working with the startup ecosystem in India as well as the brands to define their mobility strategy, application of that, how does it impact their businesses in the new era, markets like India, and then obviously stitching all that together, getting onto the Windows ecosystem or the Windows Phone ecosystem in India. So we saw two great examples in the panel before me. One was a hardcore FMCG company talking about how mobile apps are impacting their business processes right up to the last mile where the distribution is happening, or even where the inventory or the sourcing is happening. We had Zippr talk about how an app experience is getting more of a good to have a app experience to more of a utilitarian app experience, right? We all scatter, or we all kind of get confused on addresses as we give a real life use case, and how Zippr is trying to solve that. So these are some of the examples which really makes us think in a market like India, what really we should do around the app strategy and how businesses should really adopt more and more mobile, given the opportunity and the challenges. So my presentation today would be talking more about India-specific use cases, India-specific data points, because I think during the last 2 days we saw a lot of the speakers share interesting insights happening in the US, Europe, right up to Korea, right? And many of those eventually will be coming to India or are coming to India, but I thought let us focus on what's happening in India, and I'm sure most of you are already aware of and would be able to relate. So before we say apps, what is really kind of driving the apps appetite, both for consumers and businesses? As you can see, the eyeballs and minds are getting into the small form factor devices where the users spend most of the times. You can also see the societal and economic changes which are happening, right, where the friends and families around us are all talking about how do we communicate with each other, how do we hang out with each other through medium of apps. You also seeing how the lowering barriers of smartphones, where at one point of time we were talking about $250, $300 smartphone, now where various industry players are talking about sub-$100 smartphones. In terms of accessibility, in India is an infrastructure starved country, but now we are seeing the operators talking about how do I lower the barrier for access to data? How do I borrow the concept of sachet model, which the FMCG industry invented, to bring the data sachet model so that users can really start using those data to access those mobile experiences or the apps. And you're seeing in the enterprise front where the trend like bring your own device and the consumerization of IT, where enterprises are slowly kind of blurring the divide between a typical prosumer and the consumer. So they're trying to bring in technologies, they're trying to bring in applications, they're trying to kind of create a partition, but trying to unify the experience, yet keeping the security aspects, yet keeping the confidentiality aspect of a work user versus a personal life user. And that's not it. And we are seeing industry verticals like entertainment, e-commerce, which I think almost everybody touched upon, healthcare, talking about how do we kind of take the mobility journey. The question is that enough? The answer is no. Is there a scope to do more? The answer is yes. So we need further barriers to kind of lower on the smartphone prices. We need data access to be more stable, reaching the hinterland. 3G is still a niche. We're talking about 3G for last few years, but we still don't see 3G connectivity being consistent as wherever you go across India. We need cloud adoption to drive efficiency in the experiences, because certain kind of apps which are rich experience apps, how do we start moving a lot of those processing of those apps, those functionality of the apps more and more into the cloud, and then at the same time make the user experience more dynamic, more enriching. And then the coexistence of mobile apps and browser. There's always a debate which goes that, should I build a mobile app as a native experience, or should I go a mobile web experience? And the answer to that is, today it's about coexistence. You can't have an either or kind of a strategy there. And the user experience, as Professor was talking about user design overall, in the app space, how do you really make the design intuitive to not only get the consumer, but engage the consumer over the lifetime value of the app or the experience? These are some of the numbers I thought. Obviously we heard or we saw some of the numbers at a global level. These are some of the numbers which we are seeing at the India level, right? So most of the numbers are indicating that we have still not reached saturation. We are long, long away from kind of saying that, hey, we are having a huge penetration in terms of internet usage, mobile internet, in terms of data bytes being kind of consumed, in terms of apps, so on and so forth. And some of the way forward kind of areas which we are seeing, eventually India will also evolve towards, is a mobilized form factor, which will not be just a smartphone. It can be a phablet, it can be a wearable, it can be a tablet, so on and so forth. We're also seeing universalization experience, where developers, publishers, brands who want to build apps for a certain category of consumers, we are kind of working with them to see that how do you build once and deploy across multiple screens so that you're able to capture the eyeballs multiple times, and your scope of monetization also multiplies. And obviously, as we are seeing the cloud-based approach, where the backends eventually for a gaming company, or for that matter, e-commerce company, will eventually be powered by cloud, and while the mobile app experience is front-ending their consumer acquisition journey. These are some of the Indian examples of top Indian brands cutting across media and entertainment, e-commerce, travel, social, entertainment, where they have, or they're aggressively taking the mobile app route to drive their, not only the consumer acquisition, engagement, and then the monetization. So these were the same guys, when you used to talk to them 5 years back, they said, app, what is that app? It's like a checklist kind of thing. Hey, my app is there on maybe a Nokia store, or an iTunes store, or on Google Play. Now 5 years hence, when you talk to the CMOs or the business heads of these companies or the brands, it's all about apps. Their metrics have changed as enterprises, whether it's a media enterprise, whether it's an e-commerce enterprise. Their metrics of measurement, their KPIs, are all getting transformed more around the apps. Some of the devices which are enabling is smartphones, around which we have launched in India around Windows Phone, the Lumia range, and before that there was some of the other range which Nokia launched. The mobile first strategy, some of the consumer verticals which we are seeing aggressively, e-commerce, as we all know, how it is transforming itself as a pure play mobile enterprise. So they are not only focusing on the consumer acquisition part of it, they're also reorganizing their internal functions, internal business processes, to really kind of leverage the mobile change which is happening, or to really cater to the mobile consumer whom they want to acquire, engage, and monetize. Some of the areas which they're looking at is the optimization around supply chain, which an example, FMG example which Dinesh mentioned. HR, talent management, product development. They are trying out different things, how they can build that talent pool which is ready to cater to that, the mobile enterprise of today, which everybody is expecting. Cloud-led backends, they're all shifting their IT prowess into the cloud. Fortunately for them, they don't have any legacy like some of the other industries where they have a huge IT backend which needs a huge migration. So these are mostly cloud-first enterprises which we are seeing happening in the e-commerce segment. Similarly, in the media and entertainment segment, most of the editorial teams, when they used to talk in the media companies, they used to talk about content which was first for print, then for digital, and maybe then something for mobile. In 5 years, since when we used to have those discussions, we are seeing now they're talking about how do I create the content first for the mobile through an app, then for the digital, and then for the print. It's a complete shift which is taking place. Monetization models. Now, the sales teams of media companies are looking at how do I approach the inventories on mobile to drive my ad monetization, and then look forward to the digital and other segments. Major events. Indian elections was one of the examples where CNN did the Indian Elections Analytics Center, where they had a mobile app where you could live track the updates, the candidates, the election news, the wins and the losses. They had the live analytics center where you could kind of like a stock market ups and downs you can see. And that was one classic example where they used cloud, they used mobile to really kind of cater to the consumers about the election and build that engagement with them. Similarly, some of the other cases we are seeing travel, we're seeing social, Indian social players, global social players, apart from WhatsApp, the guys like WeChat and Line. Banking, the Citibanks of the world, the HDFCs of the world, if you see the last 3-4 months, all talking about how do I acquire my consumers on my mobile app? How do I make them perform transactions, account transfers on my mobile app? You're seeing a huge transition there. Healthcare and education is following suit, where we're seeing that more of the companies, the hospitals are looking at how do I enable the medical staff to better serve the patients in some of the hospitals using mobile as a technology and apps as a medium. This is a quick snapshot which we did with one of the e-commerce enterprises, and it is an ongoing engagement which is happening, where we have been working with them for the last 12 months. So when we engaged with them 12 months back, obviously we wanted them to move to mobile more and more. We wanted them to build an app for the platform on Windows Phone. We wanted them to have associated technologies and enablers which help them transform to really cater to this mobile reality. When we spoke to them, their mobile business was contributing around 15% of their overall business, both in terms of traffic and obviously in terms of the last mile conversion in terms of order booking. So we analyzed the current scenario at that point of time and said that, hey, how can we really build the market for mobile? So one was the mobile experience in itself. How do we build a engaging native app using various platform enablers to kind of build a product experience? We understood their business processes, that to build a great app, how do you build an internal talent team who would eventually become your mobile product team? We kind of worked with them to build those kind of right kind of talent using mechanisms like hackathons and all, where they opened up their APIs, the developers used to kind of code around that, hack those, and the best guys who were mavericks were selected to build that team for their mobile product, which they expanded and they had to in-house. And they were looking at the kind of traffic which they wanted to aspire in terms of, we said that we take a joint target. If 15% is coming now, that is 12 to 18 months back, can we target around 50% or 40% of the target? And we worked towards that. We agreed on a joint download target. Once the app was developed and launched on the App Store, we said that how do we do XYZ activities to target a joint download number and then see what has worked and what has not worked. In terms of marketing processes, we impacted that as well. We said that how can you launch mobile-only specific offers for the consumers? Because in the app world, the biggest challenge, specifically if it's an e-commerce app, there's the consumer phobia of the last mile. I may still search the product, I may still search the category, but when it comes to making that final call of that, hey, I need to book the order, that's where it actually drops the ball. So we said that there's a great way to educate the consumer to go through the